The quiet suburbs of Cedar Grove had always been a place where doors stayed unlocked and neighbors knew each other by name. That was until the spring of 1998, when a shocking discovery in the woods behind Maple Street shattered not just the community's sense of safety, but also exposed a web of betrayal that would haunt the town for decades to come. As local resident, Sarah Martinez would later testify, "We didn't just lose our innocence that day. We lost our faith in everything we thought we knew about human nature." Marcus Thompson was the kind of police officer who seemed to embody everything right about law enforcement. A 22-year veteran of the force, he'd earned commendations for bravery, mentored troubled youth, and was known for organizing the department's annual Christmas toy drive. His corner office at the precinct was decorated with photos of smiling children he'd helped over the years, thank you cards from grateful citizens, and certificates of achievement that told the story of a model public servant. His best friend since high school, James Wilson, lived just 3 houses down. Their friendship had begun during a memorable football game in 1964, where Thompson, playing quarterback, had thrown a game-winning pass to Wilson in the final seconds. That moment of triumph had cemented a bond that would span decades. Their families shared barbecues, celebrated holidays together, and weathered life's storms side by side. Thompson had been James's best man at his wedding. And when James's wife Marie died of breast cancer in 1989, Thompson had practically moved in for a month to help his friend cope with the loss while raising their young daughter alone. But beneath this picture-perfect facade of friendship lay a darkness that would eventually consume them both. Looking back, there were subtle signs that something was amiss, moments that would only make sense in retrospect. Lisa Thompson, Marcus's wife, would later recall how her husband had begun spending more time at the gym, buying new clothes and password-protecting his phone, changes she had attributed to a midlife crisis. In September 1997, Kiana Wilson, James's daughter, had just turned 16 and was already dreaming of her freshman year at the local community college. She was a bright, ambitious young woman who dreamed of becoming a criminal justice attorney, ironically inspired by the many dinner conversations she'd heard between her father and Thompson over the years. Her high school yearbook quote read, "Justice is not just a word. It's a promise we make to each other." Those words would later appear on her memorial plaque, a bitter reminder of dreams cut tragically short. What no one knew was that Thompson, a married father of 3, had been secretly meeting with Kiana since that summer, initially under the guise of mentoring her about her future career. Their first meeting had been innocent enough. Lunch at Molly's Diner, where Thompson had offered to help Kiana navigate the college application process and share insights about law enforcement. James had even thanked Thompson for taking such an interest in his daughter's future, completely unaware of the predatory nature of that interest. These meetings, which started in public places like the local diner, gradually moved to more private locations. Thompson began manufacturing reasons to be alone with Kiana, drives to look at potential colleges, visits to the courthouse to observe trials, and private tutoring sessions for her criminal justice aspirations. He carefully groomed both Kiana and those around her, building a plausible framework of mentorship that masked his true intentions. Thompson, then 52, began an intimate relationship with Kiana, betraying not only his wife of 27 years, but also the man who had been his closest friend for decades. The affair continued in secret for months, hidden behind careful alibis and deleted text messages. Thompson used his police knowledge to cover his tracks, turning off his work phone during their meetings and using a prepaid cell phone for their communications. Former classmates of Kiana later reported noticing changes in her behavior during this time. Her once outgoing personality became more reserved, and she began distancing herself from friends. Her best friend, Ashley Chin, remembered Kiana becoming secretive about her phone and making excuses to skip their regular study sessions. She said she was working on a special project with a mentor. Ashley would later tell investigators, but she never wanted to talk about it. The situation reached a critical point in February 1998, when Kiana discovered she was pregnant. She confided in her diary, writing, "I don't know how to tell anyone. Dad would never understand. Em says we need to keep it quiet, but I'm scared. This isn't the life I imagined for myself." The news sent Thompson into a panic. His carefully constructed life, his reputation in the department, his marriage, his friendship with James, was about to crumble. Thompson's behavior at work began to change. Colleagues noticed him making unusual requests about transfer procedures and pension regulations. He began liquidating some of his investments, and records would later show he had inquired about job openings in departments as far away as Alaska. Officer David Martinez, his partner of 5 years, noticed Thompson becoming increasingly agitated and distracted during their patrols. He arranged to meet Kiana at Riverside Park late one evening, supposedly to discuss their future. Security camera footage from a nearby gas station would later show Kiana's red Honda Civic turning into the park's entrance at 9:47 p.m. The same footage captured Thompson's unmarked police vehicle entering the park 3 minutes later. It would be the last time Kiana was seen alive. The following days were filled with mounting dread as James reported his daughter missing. Thompson, in a display of ruthless calculation, actually led the initial missing persons investigation, using his position to misdirect suspicion and contaminate evidence. He even comforted James during the search, all while knowing exactly what had happened to Kiana. 3 days later, a group of hikers discovered Kiana's body in a shallow grave in the woods. She had been strangled, and in a cruel twist that would later prove crucial to the investigation, the killer had used a police-issued garrote, a weapon that was part of specialized training Thompson had received years earlier. The medical examiner would later testify that Kiana had been 6 weeks pregnant at the time of her death. The investigation initially focused on Kiana's ex-boyfriend, but everything changed when her diary was found, hidden in a hollowed-out book on her shelf. The pages detailed her relationship with Thompson, including the pregnancy and her growing fear of his increasingly erratic behavior. The final entry, dated the day of her disappearance, mentioned the planned meeting at Riverside Park and ended with a chilling observation. "Sometimes I think he loves the idea of controlling me more than he actually loves me." When detectives brought Thompson in for questioning, he maintained his composure at first. The interrogation video shows him calmly explaining his mentorship role, even expressing appropriate concern about Kiana's disappearance. But as evidence mounted, including DNA from the crime scene and cell phone records showing his location that night, his facade began to crack. The breaking point came when investigators revealed they had security footage from a traffic camera that captured his department-issued vehicle leaving the park shortly after Kiana arrived. The aftermath devastated 2 families and rocked the entire community. James Wilson, learning of both his best friend's betrayal and his daughter's murder in the same brutal moment, suffered a heart attack and spent weeks in the hospital. The doctor said it was stress, his sister Patricia explained, but we all knew it was a broken heart. Thompson's wife and children moved out of state, changing their names to escape the shadow of his crimes. The trial lasted 6 weeks, exposing the full extent of Thompson's manipulation and betrayal. Former colleagues testified about his expertise with the garrote, and digital forensics experts outlined how he had used his law enforcement knowledge to conceal the relationship. Most damning was the testimony of a junior officer who revealed that Thompson had asked her to falsify patrol records for the night of the murder. During the trial, Thompson's defense team attempted to paint the relationship as consensual and claimed the murder was a crime of passion, hoping for a reduced sentence. But the prosecution's evidence revealed chilling premeditation. Thompson had researched untraceable poisons in the weeks before the murder and had been inquiring about law enforcement positions in other states, suggesting he'd planned to flee. The jury took less than 4 hours to return a guilty verdict. As the judge handed down a life sentence without the possibility of parole, Thompson finally broke his silence, turning to James Wilson in the courtroom and saying words that would haunt the community for years to come. "I loved her more than you ever could." James, supported by family members, responded with dignity. "You never loved her. You loved your power over her." Today, Cedar Grove, remains marked by this tragedy. The park where Kiana spent her final moments has been renamed Kiana Wilson Memorial Park, and her father established a foundation that provides scholarships to young women pursuing careers in law enforcement oversight, ensuring that his daughter's dream of justice lives on, even if she couldn't. The case led to significant reforms in the local police department, including strict protocols about officer interactions with young people and mandatory psychological evaluations. The department also established an independent oversight committee, specifically focused on preventing abuse of power and protecting vulnerable individuals. Lisa Thompson, who divorced Marcus shortly after his arrest, became an advocate for victims of police misconduct and wrote a memoir titled Behind the Badge, Living with a Monster, which helped other families recognize warning signs of predatory behavior among authority figures. Their children, now adults, have spoken at law enforcement conferences about the importance of accountability and the devastating impact of betrayal within the justice system. The Wilson House on Maple Street stands empty now, a silent reminder of the tragedy. James moved away after the trial, unable to bear the weight of memories in the home where he had raised his daughter. But before leaving, he planted a garden in Kiana's memory, filled with her favorite yellow roses. The neighbors still maintain it, a testament to a community's enduring love for a young woman whose life was cut tragically short. In the end, this wasn't just a story about murder. It was about the devastating ripple effects of betrayal, the abuse of power, and the terrible price of secrets kept too long in the dark. As one juror later remarked, some wounds never heal. They just get passed down through generations, reminding us that the people we trust the most sometimes deserve that trust the least. The case remains a cautionary tale taught in police academies across the country, a stark reminder that the greatest threats to justice sometimes come from within the system itself. And in Cedar Grove, every spring when the yellow roses bloom in Kiana's garden, the community remembers a young woman who dreamed of serving justice, only to fall victim to those entrusted with protecting it.